Alright, so this is going to demonstrate how to add a new customer to the post-call survey application, whereby we can host multiple customers on the same survey server. So in this demonstration, I've got demo1.postcall.survey.dc.gov running, and we're going to create another customer called demo2.postcall.survey.dc.gov. So the first thing we need to do is create a virtual host, an Apache virtual host, which is located in the etc/httpd/conf.d/vhost. So what I'm going to do right now is just copy one of the existing virtual hosts, the tag there, and you see we've got a copy of, got to be sudo by the way to make this edit, so go back into sudo, copy the bottom virtual host tag, which is demo1, and we're just going to change the document root and the server name and the error logs to reflect the new URL, which is demo2.postcallsurvey. And we'll go ahead and right quit and save that. Alright, so now that basically tells Apache how to route any incoming requests. So the next thing we need to do is replicate the document root for demo1. So we see two document roots for postcall survey and demo1.postcallsurvey. So we're just going to do a recursive copy to preserve permissions of demo1, and we'll just, and the directory has to be in the name of the FQDN, so demo2. Now we've got three directories in the root directory, so demo2 is there. The next thing we're going to need to do is copy the application folder. And each of the root directories has a symbolic link to the corresponding application directory. So we need to remove the initial symbolic link because that's referencing the customer that you copied. And if you look at the home directory, you can see where the applications are stored. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a recursive copy of the demo1 application folder. And we'll just call it demo2. So that recursive copy is done. Now we'll drill down into demo2, and there's a few things that we need to modify here. The environmental file, do this correctly. The .env file basically defines the database connection for the application. So we're going to change this to reference the new customer's database. So every customer will have their own database. So we'll create that later, but before creating the database, we're just going to make note of it and reference it. So our database connection for this particular customer application is referencing demo2 surveys database. And there's two environmental files we need to modify. There's one in the application root directory, and then there's one in the views directory. Make sure that that one references 2 as well. Alright, so those are the two database connection files. So that's been updated. Alright. Okay, now we're going to create the database. I'm just getting the commands here. So from here you can just do create database because Postgres is already installed. And if you wanted to take a look, you can drill down to Postgres with user Postgres. That drops you into PostgreSQL, and you can see by doing a /l that demo2 survey has been created, but I created it wrong. So I'm just going to drop both of those databases, and we'll see it again just to make sure everything's clean. This was from the last go round, so oops. Okay, so both of those databases have been removed, and we'll go ahead and create it again. Okay, database has been created. Now, once the database is created, we want to clear the cache, the application cache, because it'll still be referencing config elements of the application that you copied. So just PHP artisan config : clear clears the application cache. And then we're going to go ahead and generate an application key for this particular application with the PHP artisan generate : key. Oops, got to be sudo. Just make sure I got the right command right. No, I had it wrong. Key : generate. There we go. And you can see the application key's been generated, which now if you take a look at your environmental file, you'll see that the application key in the environmental file has been updated to reflect the key that you just generated. Now the next thing we need to do is import the tables into the new database that you created. We can use artisan migrate, which references 3 configuration files, PHP scripts that automatically create the tables and the columns in that table. So just run PHP artisan migrate, and now the database is created and the tables for the questions, the responses, and the survey is completed. Now I'm going to go back into the root directory and drill down to demo2, and we're going to create the symbolic link referencing the new application directory that we just created. And so that symbolic link is going to reference the demo2 application folder, and we're going to name the symbolic link survey with a capital S. If you keep to that convention, that limits the number of changes you need to make, because there's a number of other configuration files like in the index.php that reference survey. So it doesn't matter what's behind the symbolic link, provided that you keep to the same name for the symbolic link, then that's all that's really needed to make reference to it. So if we drill down PHP, you see that the key components here for the auto load and the boot load reference that symbolic link. So that doesn't have to be changed, provided you keep to that naming convention. So the other thing we need to do is we need to take a look at permissions and ownership. You'll see if in the directory here, Apache owns that symbolic link. Problem is, when you create the symbolic links, you can't create the symbolic link with Apache. What you actually do is you end up creating the symbolic link with DCNet admin, which is your account. So we'll just do a change own, a recursive change own, and change ownership from DCNet admin and the group from DCNet admin to Apache. You can see Apache now owns that directory. That'll allow the Apache process to read that directory. So now we're going to drill down into and see that it did recursively copy Apache, so Apache is now referenced. Let's give it a go now. So we want to go to demo 2. I think we need to update the Apache service. Oh yeah, one more thing. We got to load the survey. So we're just going to make a quick change to this one and call it demo survey instance 2, just so that we know when it gets rendered if we're rendering the correct from the correct database. So we'll load that. Once you've created your survey.json file, which is where you'll customize your questions for your customer, you run a PHP Heroku initialize and then the JSON file that you just created, and that loads the survey questions in there. Oops, I think I typed that wrong. I'll put in artisan, there we go. And it'll come back to you and say survey's loaded into the database. So now at this point we can give it a check, but because we created that virtual host configuration file, and you can see that anything that is showing Department of Human Services, that's the default location. So if the server doesn't know the URL, it's going to send it there. So what's happening here is we edited the virtual host configuration file, but we didn't restart the service. So we need to restart the service so that it reads in the new vhost, the vhost config file. That's all. So let's just double check, make sure the vhost file is correct. And it is. And then another thing to check is the log directory, which you have to be as root. But if you drill down and took a look at this directory, you see that there's no logs written for demo2, which means that Apache is unaware of that virtual host. So we'll just do a service, sudo service, httpd restart, which will restart Apache and read in all the new configuration changes. And there you go. We've got demo survey 2 instance, and that is now fully functional and available. Now, the one thing to note